So my first question, I just kind of wanted to touch basically on a few general things before talking a bit about my experience at the beginning. And my first question is that I guess it would be fair to say that you're a pioneer in bringing sort of these mindfulness and contemplative techniques to what we call the broader secular audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious as to, what sort of hurdles did you face kind of making that introduction and crossing, perhaps someone would say, that chasm between,
Yeah. Well, when we started, which was 95, it was still very early. Not many. The only people who were meditating were people who had been in retreat centers or lived in Asia for a while or something. It's not that long ago, but in terms of mindfulness being accepted in the culture, it was a really long time ago. And so in the beginning, we knew that, and we knew that we were interested in people who were kind of leaders in their field, not necessarily the absolute top of the field, but people who were in mid or career and successful. And so, because we wanted to see in what ways these practices could be beneficial in different areas of American life. It was already being used in health and healing then, and with alternative medicine, people were often introduced. John Kabat-Zinn, Dean Ornish, and others in that field were already teaching mindfulness for stress reduction and other purposes. But so we were exploring how it could work in other sectors. So knowing that people either didn't really know at all what it was about or had some misconceptions about it, we tried to eliminate all the barriers to it for people. So we had foundation funding, and we identified people through people we knew, and then we invited them to a place that was a nice place. It wasn't a comfortable place, a neutral place, yeah. Exactly. So we didn't take them to anything that seemed like a hippie retreat center. We either, some of these were like corporate settings or resort settings or whatever. And there were a few, Fetzer Institute, who was one of our partners, had a really great retreat center. It was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So it was right in the middle of country and very mainstream and very secular. So we used that often. And so we created comfortable spaces for people. We listened really carefully for what people thought they needed. Why would they be interested in this? So and it was different in each case. I mean, some people felt that they were very stressed, and they wanted stress reduction. So we would talk in that language. Other people wanted to increase their creativity, and so we would talk about that. And basically, we offered basic mindfulness practices: mindfulness, insight, loving kindness, compassion, and we worked with journalists, and later the dean of the Columbia School of Journalism came on our board, so journalism was always an interest for us. And we had a big program with lawyers and judges. There, they were, of course, the judges were concerned about being too judgmental. Isn't that great? But in fact, it's a big problem for them because people come in front of them all day long, and they're overloaded with work. They don't know the case until the person comes in front of them, and then they review it. And they, like all of us, suffer from leaping to conclusions. A person comes in, he looks a certain way, he's dressed a certain way, he's a certain profile, and the judges prejudge, and knowing that they don't want to do this, of course. They want to be absolutely there in the moment, looking at just exactly what the facts of the case are, but they recognized in themselves that they did this prejudging. So they asked if these practices could be helpful with that, and they can. So we talk about that. Lawyers were interested in, could they have compassion for the client on the other side of the case and still be zealous advocates for their client? We said yes. How could you do that? And we taught them these combinations of mindfulness, being in the moment, seeing things as they are, and compassion, recognizing that you can have compassion for another person and still be true to what it is that you're doing in the moment. It doesn't mean that compassion doesn't mean that your discrimination becomes soft. It means that you recognize that the person is a human being just like you, and deserves respect just like you.
This idea of becoming soft, and this is something we talked about on Monday, was some of the misconceptions that students or people who go through meditation or mindfulness programs have about how they're supposed to act after the fact.
Yeah, right. I forgot. People, there are a lot of people think meditation or mindfulness is emptying your mind. It's one thing that, of course, it's not about that. It's about knowing your mind, knowing what's going on in your mind. Once people realize that, it's a relief, because two things. First, people worry that they can't empty their minds, and in fact, they can't really, and the other is that we walk around not knowing ourselves well, and that when they recognize that these practices are about coming to know ourselves better, it's a relief, because you don't need anything from outside to know yourself. It's all in there. You need to refine your ability to do it. But so I think that once people realize that these practices are really about becoming more fully human, becoming just who you are, not anything other than that, then that other stuff falls away. Like, I need to act in a certain way, I need to become a vegetarian, I need to talk in a soft monotone, or whatever it happens to be. There's this huge relief when people begin to see, I can come to know myself better, I can watch my own mind, I can open my own heart, and so have better relationships with other people. There's that shift that happens from a preconception of something to an appreciation of what it is.
I think a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of getting to know themselves. And I get the recurring idea of needing to fill yourself up from the outside. When I think of people today and the way they handle stress, they're always asking, it's Monday, and they're saying, when's Friday coming?
Yeah.
And they think of needing to relax as sitting in front of the TV or going on vacation far away to some illustrious place. Now, what does, in part when you're working with mindfulness CD, you start with the breath, breathing. Now, what benefit does starting with the breath have over that vacation to Tahiti or just totally detoxing in front of the television?
Well, one thing we know now from the scientific research that's going on is that when you do begin to follow your breath and calm and quiet your mind and body, your cortisol levels drop. Those are your stress hormone levels. And so physiologically, your body changes and you feel calmer, quieter, and more relaxed, which is not necessarily true if you're watching something on television or if you're filling yourself up with experience or information to distract you from just simply being there in the moment. So there's that level of the physiological level, which it's so counter to what we usually think. But in fact, the distraction of lots of information and lots of experience is, it's hard for us, it's stressful for us. And whereas just being here in the moment, is deeply relaxing for the mind and body. And you feel better. Yeah, and you can see things more clearly. And then out of that, you begin to act in a saner way. You begin to make better choices because you can see what's going on. When you're distracted by so much stuff, it's hard to make good choices. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But as you become more mindful, you're more likely to make better choices for yourself. And then, of course, your life starts getting more harmonious, and that reduces stress as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just trying to imagine in my mind you knowing all of this and bringing it to business people or lawyers. It seems to me like it would be a hard sell to say you should focus on your breath because it's ultimately what your body and mind truly want, and you will feel better than if you go out and buy a Corvette.
Right.
And drink
well,
some
of
champagne.
course, when we offered it to people in the beginning, before now, many people know somebody who has done some meditation practice, and so that's, of course, a very effective motivator. But in the beginning, we didn't say it was between your breath and the Corvette. We said you can have it all. Just take a weekend out and watch your breath with us. And we're not telling you can't do all those other things as well. It's just for a few days. Drop in and see. Explore, investigate, see if this is helpful. And everybody is feeling so much stress that they're all under pressure to do better at their work and so on. So many people are willing to take the risk. It's not, and then you see that it's not really either or. You start modulating your life in a different way.
The one thing I've come across is that, and what I'm hearing from you as well, is that it is a simple practice of focusing on the breath, breathing. But one of the issues that I've come across now that I've started my own practice is this idea of observing your thoughts non-judgmentally. Because when I think of thinking, thinking is allowing me to strategize to get to the next place I need to be. Judgment helps me, orient myself through life and who I speak to and what I decide to do. So can you kind of elaborate on, in a way, how would you describe non-judgment to someone who is attempting to maybe sit for the first time and, watch their thoughts?
Yeah. It's a central question. It's not really about, you don't give up wise discrimination. Of course, you will decide between this idea and that idea, and this choice and that choice. You continue to do that. The non-judgmental factor is really more about prejudgment. It's about thinking that something is a certain way without actually looking carefully at what is there. That's part of it. The other is bringing a kind of good and bad judgment to what's happening in the moment. This is tricky, especially people involved in various kinds of social justice activism, will have a real hard time with this. Because if you see, for example, injustice in the moment, you see something terrible happening, it doesn't mean that you don't, you see what's happening, but you want to see it as it is. You don't want to bring prejudgments to it. So you want to see exactly what's happening, and then out of that you can make a good judgment about working wholeheartedly to change it if it's not a good thing. So, but in yourself, say you're watching thoughts in your mind, and then you're watching your breath, and then a thought arises, and then you go off on that thought, and you're you completely forget for however many minutes that you had decided that you were going to watch your breath. So then the practice is to not say, oh, that was really bad, I really failed at doing this. The practice is to say, oh, my mind went off on that thought. Now, but I'm trying to learn how to keep my mind on one point, so I'm going to bring my mind back. Because when you judge yourself for, we know this, for doing things badly like that, then you're less likely to be able to stay focused on what it is you're trying to do. So you have to let go of that. You have to just oh, my mind went off, I'll bring it back. Just noticing, which doesn't mean that you don't make choices and discriminate about what to do for the future. Is that too complicated?
No, it makes sense in that it's not as if you are trying to not have any thoughts at all, but in a way you are, as thoughts come and go, you're almost dissecting the way you think instead of saying, oh, I'm thinking about this again, that's terrible. Or, it's coming out that children have been tortured in Syria. You need to get up and do something. Just getting to know what it is.
Exactly.
Before you act, before you judge.
Yeah. It's really about learning about the nature of your mind and how thoughts work. And let's see what else. I got distracted by him. The purpose of bringing your attention fully to your breath is not because the breath in itself is, the breath is what keeps us alive, but it's really to create this one-pointed awareness which has this calming and quieting effect, and also it stabilizes your mind and body so that you then can notice more effectively the nature of your mind. And then you begin to see how thoughts arise and pass away. Where do they come from? Then you begin to ask those questions about where are they coming from, where are they going, who am I after all? But you need a calm, quiet stability in order to be able to look at your mind that way.
Thank you.
And also to look at what's happening in the outside world. Of course, once you open your eyes, mindfulness isn't just about sitting on a pillow with your eyes closed. It's about when you open your eyes and you look at all of life and how you are. Whenever you meet someone, all of a sudden all kinds of ideas about who that person is start forming based on other people you've known. You really want to just be there for whoever it is and really see her as she is. And then you can begin to have a real relationship now.
I can't imagine a better note to end on. Thank you. Those are all the questions I had, unless there's anything you wanted to add. Great.
No, but I'd be happy to talk to you anytime.